What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Do also realize I am the host of Epic Conversations, and the Dr. Vibe show is the home of Epic Conversations. I'm also a certified empowerment coach and president of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. And yes, it is Friday night. And for those who are vibers, as I like to say, people who keep in touch with me and follow me, you know that I don't usually do Friday night conversations, but this gentleman is worth it. First of all, he's a good guy. Second of all, he's a Canuck. And third of all, he writes for the Good Men Project. So he's got three good things in my book going. And we are very blessed and highly favored to have Dr. Stephen Lake on the Dr. Vibe show. First time he's been on, but I feel like he's a friend, and he's done a lot of wonderful stuff. A little bit about his background. He's been studying human dynamics and relationships between the sexes for over 30 years, first as an actor and a director for the stage, and then as a psychotherapist. He has a master's degree in counseling and a PhD in educational administration. He has worked for Corrections Canada and a maximum security prison hospital, and currently teaches graduate courses in psychology at Adler University. He also works for the BC Society of Male Survivors of Sexual Abuse, and he has a private practice. And as I'd mentioned previously, he's been involved with the Good Men Project for about 3 years, same amount of time I have been, and is the editor for the Marriage and Commitment section. So welcome to our conversation for the first time and not the last time, Dr. Stephen Lake. How are you, Doctor?
I'm doing well. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Dr. Vibe. I'm excited. I'm stoked, and I'm ready to go and share with you this evening.
Excellent. This is going to be another epic conversation since it is Valentine's Day month, and a happy belated Valentine's Day to everyone out there, and happy belated birthday to Stephen. His birthday was a day before Valentine's Day, so he got the great double. He had a birthday, then he had Valentine's Day, and before we went live, he told me he had a great 2 days. So he's got it going on. He's got it going on good. We're going to be chatting tonight about, are you love-able? Love-able. Not lovable, love-able. But before we get started on that conversation, Stephen, can you share a little background about yourself, more than the wonderful things you've already done, where you grew up, where you went to school, etc.?
Yeah, well, my father was in the military. He was in the Air Force, so we did a lot of traveling. So I lived in a place on average 2 to 3 years, and then boom, we're off moving somewhere else. So I've lived in British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec, and I did a year in England and 3 or a bit more in France. So I've lived around all over the place. And one of the things that taught me was how to make friends, because you're constantly losing friends. So there was a sadness of that, but then there was also the excitement of meeting new people. So that's sort of my travel history. And I don't know, what else would you like to know? I've been married. I was married once.
Okay, before we get to that, because that's quite a jump from growing up young and then jumping into married. So let me see if I can get a gap filler in there. You traveled a lot. Was that what was the good about that, and what was maybe the not so good about that when you were younger?
What the good about it was everything was new, learning new things, learning new cultures. There was an incident in France when I was first there. I was about, 8 years old, and we were at a campground, and there was a bunch of children playing, and I sort of was looking at them, and this one boy comes up to me, and he starts asking me if I want to play with them, but he starts off in one language, and I didn't know what he was saying. And he started off into another language. And he went through like 4 languages. And on the 5th language, he hit English. And it was like, yes, I'd like to play. And I was so impressed with that. Even now, like 50 years later, I'm like, wow, to learn that, to know that many languages. And so it really gave me an appreciation of, and the importance and the value of being multilingual. And I really, that stuck with me. That stuck with me for a long time.
Parents growing up, father and mother, what sort of things did they instill in you? What sort of lessons have you carried on in your life from you being raised by them and in that unique environment of moving around a lot? And how did your parents handle it? And how did you get, what did you gain from that?
Well, we really became focused on the family because we were moving around, so all your connections and relations with other people were lost. So the importance of the family for my brother and I think became very, very, heightened in a sense. I think families are important for all children, but even more so if you're constantly being displaced. That's the only people you have to fall back on are your siblings and your parents. So my mother and father were diametrically opposed, very traditional. My mother was and stereotypical. My mother was emotional. She actually used to be a professional actress herself in England. She's also my father, we go back 14 generations in Canada, but my mother's an immigrant.
Okay.
My mother's from England, so there's that twist as well. And my father was a military sergeant, really stern, by the book, very little flexibility. And that was challenging, to say the least, growing up with that.
So
and my mother and I had a great relationship, so she really taught me how to communicate and be with a woman.
Well, it's interesting because it sounded like father was very much a disciplinarian. Am I correct in assuming that?
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay, so growing up all over the place, where did you go to post-secondary education, all of that? How did that come into the journey at a young age?
Well, moving around from province to province and country to country was actually difficult academically. I did really well when I was very young, but when I hit like grade 8, all of a sudden I moved from one province to the other, and I started to do very, very poorly. I was like scraping by. So for 4 years I was scraping by. It was very depressing, very difficult for me. And then my father had done the traditional thing. He had saved money to send me to university. Very few people in our family had gone to university. He saved, he worked hard. And then the time came when I sort of graduated from grade 13 in Ontario. We had 13 grades back then.
Yes, yes.
He says, like, which university are you going to go to? And I'm like, university? I'm not going to waste my time and your money.
Wow.
And that was devastating to him. He saved for the last, whatever it was, 18, 19 years. And so I kind of went off, and I was riding motorcycles and learned to fly airplanes and basically having a great time. And then one day he said, if you want to live in my house, you need to work. So I was like, oh, or go back to school. And I went, okay, I think I'll go back to school. And so I went back to school. I went to junior college in Quebec, CEGEP.
Yep.
And I entered the acting program. I thought, what would be the thing that could piss my father off the most? I'll become an actor. And it did. He didn't talk to me for a year, I think.
So okay. So let me just ask, if we cycle back to that time, if he didn't make that, I guess, choice for you, would you have just kept on going, leading somewhat of a rebellious life? Well, I actually wanted to become a pilot.
Okay. So I thought I was going to continue on with my flying lessons, and so the problem with that is, though, I got airsick. So
Stephen, you're never easy, Stephen. It sounds from a young age that you were not an easy guy. No, I was also a sick child too. So, my father was a Canadian light heavyweight weightlifting champion. And he had this real sickly child, asthmatic, tiny, skinny. Oh, my gosh. Looked like I was starving. Oh, my gosh. And rebellious.
Apparently, I guess in some ways. I didn't see it,
Okay, no problem. That's cool. So you went back to school, went to CEGEP. After CEGEP, what was the next step?
Well, I started working professionally as an actor.
Okay, and how was
Yeah,
that?
so I
And
was
how?
working on I was working on the stage.
Mhm.
I moved out west, so from Quebec. As soon as I graduated, I came out west and started working in Vancouver. And I worked a couple years in Edmonton at the Citadel Theatre there. So I did a lot of children's theater, mostly children's theater. So I toured a lot. So I did, I don't know, 400. Let me see. I don't know. In a few years, I did close to over 1,000 shows in a
Wow,
2 or 3 year period. Yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, and then I started directing and getting involved in the human potential movement, and that's sort of what led me eventually to psychology. Was working with change and working with people to change, to get things they want in their life, to feel empowered, to be happier. And then that sort of eventually led to going back to school.
Was it hard leaving the acting profession?
When I made that choice, no. Though I loved it, I mean, I totally loved it. I just felt I'd gone back to school at that point, and I was studying for my master's no, I was an undergrad, right? Because I had no university, so I had to go do an undergrad. And I was directing this really brilliant woman. She was a brilliant actress. And I just sort of cocked my head after she did the scene. I went, I like working with people in a therapeutic context more than I like directing. And that kind of surprised me. But I really got it. And I was doing like a double major at that point. So I was doing a major in theater and in psychology. And then I just applied out for my master's for counseling.
And
And that's what I've been doing.
and was that the right choice at the right time to go into the counseling world for you?
No, absolutely.
Cool.
So it was a continuation. I mean, if you think of in therapy and counseling, there's even something called, psychodrama and drama therapy. So it wasn't a hard transition. As I say to people, when I was an actor and director, I used to play psychopaths. And now as a psychologist and a psychotherapist, I don't play that. I work with those people. So in prison, I worked with psychopaths.
Okay. Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Well, and
You know.
I want to get a little bit more of your background because it's been so varied. What is your involvement in regards to the BC Society of Male Survivors of Sexual Abuse? How did you get involved in that? And I've had conversations on the show a few times about that, but I've never had enough. So anytime I get perspective from someone like yourself, I'd love you to share either how you got involved, your experience with that for our audience.
Mm. I was working in the prison system before that job. So I was working in a maximum security prison hospital. And we had people from all over Canada who were problematic. And they were so difficult to control in their home prison, they were sent to us so that we had like an 8-month program that they would be involved with. And then we'd ship them back to their home prison. And hopefully they'd be less violent, mainly violent. And what I noticed is I worked in 2 units. I worked in what they call the ABC unit, which stands for Aggressive Behavioral Control, and I also worked in the Sexual Offender unit. And what I noticed was that most of the people had some form of sexual abuse in their history. And so that's where I sort of got that first interaction working with men in particular, because prior to that, in my private practice, I did a lot of work with women with sexual abuse. So now I'm working with men who themselves may have been abusers themselves and often had a sexual abuse history as well. And so that was my orientation to that subject and that population. And then when I moved, I was in Saskatchewan at the time, when I moved to BC, back to BC, a friend, a contact said, there's a position open at the BC Society of Male Survivors. And I applied, and I've been working there for the last 10 years.
Well, we won't get into that subject on this conversation, but if
Mm.
you have any time in the future, would certainly like to get your perspective in
Sure.
regards to that, because I think it's a very important and underreported
Mm-hmm.
area that needs to have light shined on it. So we'll parking like that for another conversation. And do note, Stephen, when he gets time, will be making more appearances on the conversation. So when Stephen and I first had a conversation about a month or two ago, we hit it off really well, said, let's collaborate. And he gave me a list of a number of conversations that he wanted to have. And he decided to start on this one tonight, saying, are you love able? So first of all, before we get into the heavy meat of the conversation, why did you want to start with this topic first?
Well, I do a lot of couples counseling, and I wrote a book for men on how to communicate with women. And often in my office, the men are complaining about the women, and vice versa. And one of the things is this whole thing of there's this expectation that just because I'm alive, somebody should treat me well. Now, I agree that someone should treat you well just because you're alive, but that doesn't mean that they are going to be treating you in the way that you think, or the way that you want, or the way you think you deserve if you're acting like an asshole, excuse my language. And so in other words, this idea of, well, if you want love, maybe there are things you can do that would help facilitate that process, whether you're a man or a woman. It's like, if you're always moody, or you're always angry, you're bitter all the time, how lovable is that? How attractive is that to a partner? And so that's sort of where that idea first came up for the article.
Excellent. So let me ask, and I'd like to get your perspective, how do men and women approach love differently?
Well, I'll go back, it's around the area of intimacy, and I'll go back to, I'm paraphrasing a quote here. It's like, men like to have sex, and then they become intimate. Women like to be intimate, then they have sex. You get that?
I get
we're
it.
coming there. So men use sex to become intimate. Women want intimacy to then have sex. And I'm generalizing, of course, but that was a quote by a philosopher, paraphrasing.
So, and I've heard that in different forms over the years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why hasn't that changed much?
Well, but I think biology is the short answer to that. And what I'm doing with my work with men is I see it like a foreign language, sort of going back to, I think, a foreign language. It's like when I work with men, they often say, well, why is it that I'm the one that has to change? Doesn't she have to change too? And yeah, both partners have to change. But it's kind of like this. If I go to a foreign country, if I know the language, that's a huge advantage, right? I can figure out what's going on. I can get things done. I can communicate with people. And so I see that men and women have different styles of communicating, right? And so if I know how to communicate with a woman in the language that she can relate to, I'm going to get what I want, right? And if I can't, then there's this struggle that always goes on between men and women. They don't understand our styles and our needs.
In the years that you've been practicing, and this in regards with couples, has this stayed the same? Has it changed? Is it getting better? From your perspective, where is it? Are men and women sort of getting a little bit better at understanding this, or are they still in a cavern, so to speak?
Well, I think there are more men now than ever that are more able to be in touch with, and not only in touch, but also to communicate their own sensitivities and their own emotions. And that makes them much more able to communicate with women, speaking generally now. However, even though there's more men that are able to do that, I teach graduate school classes in psychology, and my class is almost all women. And they're in age between 25 and 35. And I sometimes ask them, so what are the problems you have in your relationships? And most of them are opposite sex relationships, but not all of them. And they say, in the opposite sex relationships, they say, "Oh, he doesn't know how to communicate." I'm like, "Oh my God!" 20 years later, it's the same issue, and these are people that are out there right now that are in relationship, relatively young, and I'm hearing the same stuff, and that's not to put aside the complexities, for example, of dating these days. It's way more complex in some ways than it used to be, just because of the options with the internet and stuff like that.
So, where are men and women getting their lessons in love from?
Their families of origin.
Oh,
So
okay.
if that wasn't healthy,
Exactly.
they're in problems.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it seems if this is still an issue, if this is still an issue throughout the generations, it seems like it's almost an inherited generation to generation. Is that what you're seeing? Because you've been doing this for a while. Are you seeing this a generational thing?
For sure, it's passed down. So it's an intergenerational problem. However, the problem is more recent because in the old days, I don't know, let's go 50 years and back, roles were much more established. So, stereotypically, the man had certain roles, certain expectations, and if he did that, he was, as long as he wasn't violent at home or whatever, he was doing his job. He was doing the right thing. He was a good man. And now things have changed, and the woman had her roles as well. So women are in the workforce. There's much more equality now, and the relationships, we were not taught how to make that transition. So for older guys like myself, depending when we got married or connected up, there was the beginning of those transitions. And so I see a lot of men who are, say, over 45, they're really confused of how to interact with women because they're not acting within the roles that they were brought up with.
So
right? Maybe the woman makes more money. Yeah. And even though theoretically that shouldn't be a problem, you'd be surprised how many men have difficulty with that. And the research backs that up.
So that's on the end of the men, that obviously for some men it's like a round peg, square hole situation.
Yeah, so we need to get some flexibility, right? So and again, not just men, but the women as well. I really want to make sure that's important. It's like both of us have to, roles have changed. So in some ways, I would say that it's more stressful now to be a man than ever. I mean, men die 7 years younger than women for a reason, right? And I think the stress is even ratcheted up that much more.
It's interesting. Sometimes I will tell ladies that it's not easy being a man. And do you see that it's even getting more difficult to be a man these days, let alone with relationships? Just being a man is more difficult these days than ever before?
Absolutely, because there is choice. There's more choice, and whenever there's more choice, there's more stress. Those two go hand in hand. Even if there's good choices, it's like, well, I don't want to be like, X. And now we have the ability to do that. For example, I went to university at 37. 50 years ago, nobody at 37 went to university. That just didn't happen. It wasn't even a possibility, right? So I went back, at that age and spent a lot of years, just over 10 years, educating myself. And in the past, that just wasn't possible. And now, so how do I want to show myself as a man? And do I want to be the traditional guy with the tight T-shirt and the, well, you don't want to have cigarettes up your arm anymore, but
I remember those days. I wasn't part of them, but I remember them.
That's right. Or do you want to be like a metrosexual person? Or do you want to be maybe fluid in your sexuality and how you express your sexuality? Those are, at least in the cities, there's more possibility to do that. A bit more challenging if you come from a small community in the countryside.
Okay, so we spent a little bit of time on saying the challenge of adjustments for men. What do you see the challenges of adjustment for women when it comes to being love able in our society today?
Well, the two are really intertwined, for the men and the women. And what I see with young men and women, say 25 to 40, is a lot of confusion. And what's happened is both parties have pulled back, like to make a commitment. Now, nobody wants to make a commitment. It's like you can sleep with somebody 3 or 4 times, but you're not dating. Heaven forbid you say the word dating until you actually get to that place where let's move it to the next level. That's very different from my era. If you were sleeping for someone, assuming it wasn't just in a one-night stand, you were automatically dating. It's
Right.
like it's automatic. So there seems to be a real fearfulness to say, hey, I think you're fabulous. Let's go for it. Everybody's like, well, some of the complaints I hear is that from the women is that, men, they want to sleep with you, but there's no commitment of any sort. And then so the women have mixed feelings about that. Then after a while, and I've heard this, from my students, the women after a while, they go, well, that's just not satisfying. So they don't even want to have sex at all until they can find someone to get in a relationship. But a lot of men sort of see that as, that's kind of like normal. It's kind of like, yeah, well, let's have sex and sort of see where it goes. So and those are age-old problems too, at least even from my ear. It's like, I was very driven as a young man. My focus was to get the woman in bed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was, but they seem to know that. So it was this game. We know what you're after, and if you want to have a relationship, it's like that kind of came with it. You want that? Well, you better be willing to be involved in a deeper way.
Wait,
Yeah.
so one of the things I always like to share is that before you have a relationship, you have to have a friendship. So what has happened to getting to know each other these days? Like, it just seems like it's a real mess.
It is. There's a lot of confusion out there. So, friends with benefits. And I mean, conceptually, and I've been in that space myself, but that can get, it's like it's a good idea, and yet I see a lot of people being hurt by that. And I see both men and women being hurt by that. And I see a lot of men now who are being more careful, or it's like they kind of feel disenfranchised, if you will, about the whole relationship, commitment, marriage thing. So a lot of men in their 40s that I'm working with, it's like they've given up on relationship. They've given up on women. I'm like, oh my God, you've given up on women? And they're like, it's not worth it. And it just blows me away when they say that, because I think women are more than worth it.
And it's an interesting thing, and we're back to the men here, but I don't know if a lot of ladies may not realize that when a man gets hurt in love, it's really deep.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
because there's a conception, and maybe you can elaborate on this for our audience, that men can just move on to the next thing.
Yeah, not true. Not in my experience. And I think there are some men that can do that.
Right.
And they become sort of used as the example for all men.
Right.
And my experience both with friends and with clients and with students is that guys are just as sensitive. They may show it differently, they may demonstrate it differently, but as you say, when they get hurt, they're devastated. I have a friend who caught his wife cheating on him, at least 30 years ago. He's never been able to commit to a woman since.
You're kidding.
No, he's had, sort of some relationships, short-term, but he's never been able to or been willing to open his heart up again, fully.
Wow.
And eventually the woman feels that and then walks away. So he was hurt big time, and it never really healed that wound.
That's a serious, wow, 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And he's single right now. You know, and he's a good-looking guy. He's independent. You know, he doesn't even need to work now, and so he would be attractive, you would think. But if he can't give his heart fully, you know, he's not going to really find a partner, or at least once the partner finds out that he can't give his heart fully, he should be gone.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I can continue on with some conversation because I know there may be some things that you wanted to share with our audience on this. So please feel free, because I know you wrote an article, you've written articles on this, but certainly are there some messages that you want to get out during our conversation this evening?
Yeah, thanks. So that just what we're talking on. So what makes you lovable or love-able? And one of them I would say is that your heart is open. People feel that. You know, if you're generous, if you're open-hearted, if you're caring, you know, all those wonderful attributes that we all value, those are important. So if you're hiding those qualities, people don't really know what's going on inside of you. And I think that because of the complexity of dating these days, people are playing their cards close to their chest, especially their feeling cards, if you will. They're very reticent to say, you know, my heart just sings when I see you. What a romantic way of putting it, eh?
Very nice.
I have to say that to my wife.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was going to ask you what does that look like, what you're talking about, but you just laid it down really nicely there.
So we're talking vulnerability.
Let's stop right there.
Yeah. Sure.
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability. Yeah, it's a word. It's hard to say even.
Yes, vulnerability. Yes, because that is a huge one, and on both sides of the coin for men and women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Could you expand on that for us, please?
I've had many relationships over the years. Many relationships. I was married for 7 years to a clinical psychologist. We're still friends. And my current relationship is 18 years long. And I always had the belief that when in a relationship, I threw myself in. I opened myself up. Does that make you open to being really hurt? Absolutely. I've been hurt many, many, many times. And the only reason I kept going is because I thought, or I believed, that the rewards were worth it. So when it's working well and when things are great, it's like, this is as good as it gets. You know, when you're in a relationship that you're happy in, you see the world through, you know, rose-colored glasses. You know, you do. It's a wonderful experience. And so even though my relationship stopped, my marriage stopped, I kept going, oh, I'm going to keep putting myself out there. I don't care how much it hurts. A lot of people don't make that decision. They go, this is too painful. I don't want to bother anymore. And they give up. You know, I really encourage those people to put themselves out, because it doesn't kill you. It doesn't. I'm still breathing. And even all the people I know that are disappointed, they're still breathing. Hurts like hell. And then there's also something to be learned in any failed relationship. It's like, well, why didn't it work? You know, there's some good information there probably. You know, because it takes two people to tango, as they say. So it's probably not all his or her fault. And, you know, what was my contribution to it not working, and figuring that out. And how can I become, in a sense, more lovable? Now, one of the things I talk about is you have to be able to love, not only love another person, but to be lovable, you have to love yourself. So one of the biggest lessons I learned in my journey was how to set boundaries and protect myself. So I was in a relationship where it was abusive, basically. And I ended up with an ulcer, and was like, you know, on death's door kind of thing, because it was so much stress.
Wow.
And it was so, yeah. I mean, I had a buddy come, and I was in bed, and he was there. And he was like, "What? You got to get out of this relationship. It's killing you, literally." And I was like, "Oh, I can't. I love her." You know, and he's like, "That doesn't matter. You're dying, you know. You got to get out." And I didn't have the internal strength, the internal self-regard internal protective mechanisms to go, listen, I may love this person, but love is not enough. It's a favorite saying of mine. Love is not enough. It's important, but not enough. It's not worth it to stay in that kind of relationship. Now, so you have to be able to love yourself. So for me, it was learning to say no, to be able to, in my case, to be able to fight back, like actually voice my upset if the person was being, giving me some heavy-duty anger my way, instead of just sort of quaking and having my stomach go into knots and not being able to communicate my truth. So to be able to love yourself, and also to be able to receive love. Some people have a hard time receiving love. They can give love, but to be, it says, open up and let that love in, really let it in. That's a challenge. And the last one, to being lovable, is to actually have traits that are endearing. Like I said in the start of our conversation, if you're just, moody and stuffy and a stick in the mud, and you don't give compliments, and you're cynical about life, well, it's not a lot of fun.
Yeah, who's gonna want to be around you if you're like that, anyways?
That's right. What was it my wife said to me once? Because I definitely go through periods where I get overwrought with my business or something like that. What did she say? I'm just trying to. I should ask her.
Yeah, no problem.
Can I ask her?
Absolutely.
Okay. Paulette? Yeah. What did you call me? What did you say I was being? When I was not moody. What was it? What was it that you said I was?
When was it?
I just can't remember now. See, I've gotten over that. Basically, I was being like a stick in the mud, but something. She said, well, you're always like that. This moody. It's kind of like, that's not a lot of fun to be around.
Yeah, you were moody.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I thought, oh, wow. So it was like a bit of a wake-up call. It was a good reflection, and I went, she's right. I'm just being miserable. That's not
business, usually.
About business, usually.
All right. There you go.
So I decided to be less like that, and which took a bit of conscious work on my part.
Sure.
But it was well worth it. So we have more fun now.
Right. I want to roll. I want to roll back. I want to roll back in regards to the knowing and loving yourself before you can be lovable, able for others. How there to me, when I hear that, there's a fine line about loving yourself and then being conceited.
Yes.
Can you?
So I would
Can you sort of expand on that?
Sure. I think it's about having a healthy relationship with yourself. So I don't want people to become narcissistic or uncaring of others. All right. So you can still care about others, but also care for yourself, so that when you're feeling abused, you're able to communicate that. You're able to say, hey, this doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm being stepped on. My opinion doesn't matter, that you're unilaterally making a decision. And this goes both ways for either sex.
Yes.
So that you're able to communicate that. And what's probably more important is the ability to, if things are really dissatisfying, to say, to be able to make the request, this is what I see happening, and this is how I'd like it to be, and can you accommodate that? And if you can't, here's the consequences. And if you can, here's the consequences. See, I like the positive reinforcement, right? It's like, because if you could do that, we'd have this phenomenal relationship.
Right.
It would be so exciting. We'd have so much more fun, and we could be playful, and life would be much better than us, always, battling at loggerheads, which gets, for most of us, that gets a bit tiring. Some people are okay with that, but most of us, I think, find that difficult.
Absolutely. I just want you to go through you had some other points, because I want to ask get some conversation pieces. So you had vulnerability. What were the other ones?
Openness, which is kind of the same, but it's a bit different. It's an openness. It's the ability to share things, to share your life, to share what's happening. You know, some people are really secretive.
Yes.
You know, partners find that difficult. It's like, what's going on? Oh, nothing. Well, that's just not true. You know, it's like something's going on. I don't know what it is, but what's happening? And it's like in the 5 love languages. One of the love language is quality time. So if that's your preference, that would be very disheartening to have somebody who doesn't want to share things with you, doesn't want to talk at deeper levels, doesn't want to take the time to explore, whatever it is that interests them.
Well, and a great example of that, especially the differences between the sexes, is I can give 2 examples. When a lady comes home from work and their guy will ask how her day was, she'll go on for a while. From a lot of guys, when they come home how was your day at work? Fine.
Yeah.
What'd you do today?
Yeah.
Nothing much.
Yeah.
And even a better example I like to use is when a guy goes to get his hair cut and a lady goes gets her hair done. A lady will go to the hairdresser. They will be there for hours, a lot of them, talking away. Whereas a guy go gets his hair cut, and I'm being general here, that's it. Done. This whole thing about expression, and I like the word you use, openness. Like, I have moments where I don't want to talk. I'm talked out. But the openness is key, and I guess for guys out there especially, I don't think you have to be open all the time, but you have to be open at the right time.
That's a good way of putting it. Also, when you get talk about the hair thing, and again, this is I'm generalizing a bit because I think it's changed a lot for younger men. Younger men spend a lot of money on getting their hair done, and it means more to them than it used to mean maybe to guys. Maybe. I mean, I can still think of the fawns, 50s, the guys with the pompadour, the special hair, put a lot of effort in there. But generally speaking, I think men get their hair cut because it's functional. Whereas women get their hair cut because they're trying to look a certain way, they're trying to be attractive, right? And they want to be noticed. So when your girlfriend or your wife comes home, it's good strategy to notice that and say, "Oh, wow, you got your hair done. That's kind of cool," And then she feels great, right? Because if I come home and my wife says, "Oh, your hair looks great," it's like, okay, good. It doesn't have a lot of weight on it for me. Right. It's kind of like, it's nice, but it doesn't. I don't really care.
So, and it's interesting. You said a lot of interesting things in that little few moments. But one of the things I sort of looked at was, maybe it's a reflection on how, and a generalization, how men and women look at relationships, where a lot of men will look at relationships being functional, where a lot of ladies will look at as emotional. Am I far from that? Is it too much of a generalization?
Well, if that's true, I think part of it has to do with culture and society. So if a man is out there working, trying to bring home the bacon, and nowadays women are bringing home the bacon as well.
Absolutely.
Right? And so we're actually seeing changes. So women are becoming more like traditional men, and with some of the issues associated with that. But generally speaking, men don't have as much flexibility or choice, and so that the functional aspect, I think men want a relationship too. I mean, I know I do. I mean, I want a relationship with my partner, and if you sort of come from that more traditional background, it's like you do your role. You have the role of the husband, the role of the father. If you do that, you do it well, you've done your job. And so I have a lot of men, a bit older, well, actually even some younger guys now that I'm thinking about, who they have a couple kids and they're going through a divorce.
Oh.
And they're like, I don't get it. I worked so hard. I did everything for the family. And I worked 60 hours plus a week. And of course the woman's going, yeah, you were never there. have a relationship. He was doing the role, the function, as you say, of
Yep.
being a husband.
Yep.
And he's devastated. He doesn't get it. It's like, what happened? This is a real problem.
Wow. You had mentioned, we were talking a few moments ago about younger men. Are you seeing that more younger men are getting it when it comes to the love-able?
I see, I belong to this, or I did belong to this young men's group, and all of them were really working on personal development. They were really trying to understand themselves. And I think by doing that, they're going to become very lovable. Because I looked at them and said, oh, these are amazing young men. I was just blown away. They're caring, they're loving, they're doing charity work. You can talk to them, you can talk about emotions with them. And very few of them were actually in stable relationships. Everyone's going, wow, these guys would be great catches. They're wonderful men, but they were, it's like they had put the relationship side of life, they'd put it aside for the moment. And we're really working on personal self-development.
Okay. So do you see that trend, especially more with younger men and women? They're more putting the relationship thing to the side and either looking for educational development, personal development, career development. Even is this more prevalent than ever in our younger generation compared to previous generations?
I believe so. So I'm even getting that from young women as well. It's like I'm hearing them say, relationships are too complex. I don't have time for that right now. I got to focus on my career. And of course, there's a bit of a problem with women too, because they have a biological clock that men don't have.
Right.
And then so I'm seeing women who, getting into the 30s, and all of a sudden they're going, this is a real factor. Whereas the guys is like, it's not that big as an issue.
Right. Who is let me just ask, can you give an example of someone that you've coached/counseled who started not love-able but has become love-able? Or has there been anyone you've counseled?
I'm thinking when people go through a divorce, and I'm talking specifically about the men right now,
Yep.
and they come to counseling, they start to discover a lot about themselves and where they have been rigid in their expectations, rigid in how they saw the world, rigid in what their expectations, especially from their partner. And through working, even though the relationship may have gone the other way, gone south, they start to discover their part in a failed relationship. And if they're open and willing, that's the starting point, in which then they can grow and understand themselves and know and appreciate their strengths, because every guy I see has got strengths, wonderful qualities, and if they can, in a sense, lead with those. It's like when we first start dating. We show all our wonderful qualities, and we act a certain way with our partner, and we're really nice to them, and then we get together, it's like we stop doing what worked in the first place. What's with that? You know what I mean? It's like, if bringing flowers, she likes that, keep bringing flowers. It works. This is not rocket science. This is the other thing. I wrote a 300-plus page book on how to basically have a successful relationship with a woman. It's not rocket science. Find out what she likes, give it to her, and vice versa. Know what you want and need, and make sure that you're getting those as well. So you find a partner who wants to give you those things. It can be simple if you know yourself.
Well, one of the phrases I use a lot these days is simple requires discipline, though.
Yes.
And
Absolutely. It's hard, for example, for me, it's hard to set boundaries. I had to discipline myself to do that. Even, I don't like arguments. I'm conflict avoidant. but all relationship has arguments. And every time, even though I've gotten very good at it with my current partner of 18 years, I have to take a deep breath every time we're about to have a conflict, because I want to go the other way. And it takes a discipline. I go, okay, just stay with it. And I deal with my ego. Usually it's my ego that's in the way, you know? Right. And I just work through the stuff.
Wow. How have you, I guess, what lessons have you learned about being love able in your own life from people you have counseled? Have you learned any lessons about being love able, more love able through, you know, I'm not talking about personal experience, but you've had this, a lot of people shared their experiences in this area with you. Have you learned any lessons from them? Because obviously, as a counselor, it's great to give and share lessons and knowledge, but it's also even better when you receive reciprocal back.
Absolutely. I've learned so much from my clients. I was teaching them this very subject 2 nights ago about therapeutic relationship is a two-way relationship. And I get as much from my clients as hopefully they get from me. On the area of lovability, I haven't thought specifically about that, but I would say just, you know, answering the question in the moment, what they've given me is their heart. And I always say, if you lead with your heart,
good point,
in a relationship,
good point,
you can't lose unless the other person's, you know, vicious, all right? And as long as you can protect yourself, if that is the case, you know, come back to what's important. Come back to love.
But that's interesting. That also circles back to, in order to be able to lead with your heart, you've got to be able to be vulnerable. Correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And clients in therapy are extremely vulnerable. So I've learned that. It's like I sort of bow down to them, that they are able to come and share their heart, their sadnesses, their aches, their lost dreams, their dashed hopes. I mean, you know, to do that to someone they don't even know.
Yes.
You know, they don't even know me. And they're sharing that. And I'm like, whoa, that takes faith. That takes trust. That takes... You know, they're, and also what they're showing me is that if you want something and are willing to work for it, anything is attainable.
Excellent. In regards to this, what do you see in the near future for this status of love able? Are you optimistic? Are you hopeful?
Yes, and I am especially hopeful for the younger generation in particular, because their habits aren't as ingrained for as long as they have been. My habits have been ingrained for 60 some odd years. You know, someone who's 25, hey, it's 25 years. And when I have young clients, I love it. Especially if they're couples that come in, they're kind of like, we're having trouble here, you know, with conflict management, and I give them a few tips. I see them 2 or 3 times, and they run with it. Because we don't have like just this whole entrenched history where they're not even sure if they love each other anymore. It's one of the first questions I ask, or I see, it becomes evident in my working with them. Oh, they still love each other. This is workable. But if there's no love there, ooh, that's tough.
All right. Okay.
So I'm very enthusiastic about shifts happening, especially for the younger generation. And I see that borne out research-wise is that more men are willing to go to counseling now than ever before.
Great. Well, we're coming up to the end of our conversation as we wind it down, and it's gone fast. It's just like I just looked and go, wow, things have just gone. But when you have good friends, things just fly by and things just float. So this conversation just floated and done well. Before we let you go, Stephen, do you have any actionable steps you'd like to share with our audience when it comes to being more love able?
Sure. Ask someone you know and trust what would make them more love able or more lovable. In other words, don't try to figure it out yourself. Ask your partner, what would make me more appealing to you or make our relationship more enjoyable? And I can assure you, your partner will have some clear ideas.
Oh yeah.
They may have a list.
Yeah, you got to be ready. You got to be ready. Got to be ready because you're going to get it back big time.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you don't have a partner, ask your sister. Ask your mother. You know, ask a good female friend if you're a guy.
And vice versa.
If you're a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they'll tell you, you know, if you say, be honest, I want to be more love able.
I think just in general, in everyday life, I think it's important to have people like that in your life who are going to be brutally, and not in a bad way, but brutally honest with you.
Yeah, yeah. And then really just open your mind and let it in, and then think of how you can translate that concept into practical behavior.
And Stephen has emphasized already, and I'll emphasize it too. If you're having challenges in this area, ask for help. Don't stay secluded. Don't stay bottled. Ask for help. There's a lot of organizations, individuals like Stephen here. You could contact him, and I'll ask him in a few moments to give his contact information. They're here to help you. Stephen has a lot of evaluated experience. So certainly, if he can't help you, I'm sure he can direct someone who can help you. So I think it's a good note to end the conversation off. Stephen, I'd like to thank you for taking time to finally get you on the show.
It's been a great pleasure. Lots of fun. Thank you, Dr. Vibe.
Absolutely. And do note, Stephen will be back in the future again when he has time, because he's got a lot of things going on. Like I said, we've got him on, Eastern time, live on a Friday night. It's around 7 o'clock his time, and I'm sure he has more work to do. He's got a lot going on in a positive way. But before we let you go, Stephen, how can people best contact you?
Okay, the best way to get me would be at this email address, dr.steve, like Dr. Steve, at sasktel.net. That's sasktel.net. And that always gets through to me. You can also look up on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all those things if you wish. It's just type me in and something will come up for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we'll put his contact information on the post for the replay. And you can find him at the Good Men Project too. He's got a number of articles at thegoodmenproject.com. Just type in his name in the search engine there, and that's how we collaborated. I don't like using the word connect. That's how we collaborated. So we both contribute to that publication. Before we let everyone go, first I'd like to say thank you for everyone for watching this live on the replay or on the replay. If you want to get in touch with me, probably the three best ways is Twitter at drvibeshow, email address dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com, and also website address is www.thedrvibeshow.com. As someone told me in the past, I am very Googleicious, so if you put in the and then space dr.vibeshow, you'll catch me. You can catch me at the Good Men Project. You can catch me at iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, Cuisine Noir Magazine, a number of different places. So we'll wrap it up here. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles and you're a solution for someone's problem. And look forward to more conversations with Stephen. And as always, I'd like to say, sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. So thanks very much for watching, and we will catch you very soon. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.